Be it Russia's biggest Typhoon class, the deadliest Belgorod class, or even the newly buzzed Bore class submarines, this varied fleet of submarines is a threat to most of the nations in the world because of its insane features and technical aspects. From these stealthy fleets of submarines, the two most powerful and lethal submarines, namely Belgorod and Dmitry Donskoy, were spotted in the White Sea last week. What was the purpose of these deadliest submarines floating the White Sea? Are Russians planning to attack Ukraine with these ghostly weapons? Or are they just carrying out their regular operation? There will obviously be some reason behind these submarines floating in the White Sea, and the curious aspect here is the crucial location of the White Sea. This location makes analysts more anxious about the floating of the two biggest and the deadliest submarines owned by Russia. Let's take a deeper dive to know why these submarines are floating in the White Sea while the tensions are increasing between the two nations. While the tensions between Ukraine and Russia have increased, Ukraine is out of no way to spot the two largest submarines in the White Sea. These two submarines were spotted not near Ukraine, but several miles away from the theater of war and close to Russia's northwestern coast. These two largest submarines spotted in the White Sea were the Belgorod K-239 and the Dmitry Donskoy TK-208, which are from the Typhoon class of Russia. These two submarines are massive, such that no such submarines of this big size have been spotted in the West to date. Not even the American Ohio-class submarines? Yes, these two gigantic Typhoon-class submarines have also surpassed the US's most experienced and advanced Ohio-class submarines. These Ohio-class submarines are the pride of the US, and these submarines have been one of the most powerful and advanced nuclear-powered submarines in the American fleet. The Russians have chosen the perfect place to float the two biggest submarines, as the White Sea is a southern inlet of the Barents Sea on Russia's northwest coast. Nevertheless, this White Sea also serves as an important route connecting Russia's far eastern ports and the economically vibrant regions of northwest Russia and other nations. The next fascinating fact about this White Sea-Baltic Canal is it directly flows into Lake Onega, which eventually connects the waterway network of European Russia. So, are these gigantic submarines operational to attack Ukraine? Well, there is no specific reason disclosed for these submarines floating in the White Sea by officials. From some sources, it was revealed that Dmitry Donskoy is still under its sea trials, so expecting these submarines to attack Ukraine will not be relevant. However, these are just speculations, as there is no exact information on these two submarines floating. One of the military official analysts, Joseph P. Charko, speculates that in Russia's backyard, one can spot the White Sea, which is also closer to Finland and Sweden. So according to the location, he expects that these two submarines will be heading toward the Barents Sea via the White Sea-Baltic Canal for some operations. And the floating of these submarines is also reasonable because the canal which they will navigate through is not deeper, so they had to surface and transit. When officials were asked if these submarines were related to Finland and Sweden operations, which are soon to be NATO members, however, the reply from the officials exclaimed there was nothing related to the future NATO members. Nevertheless, he replied that these strategic submarines only use long-range ballistic missiles, so the chances are pretty high that Russians are only guarding its perimeter against the US or undertaking their routine exercises. These Typhoon-class submarines are the latest and the most advanced submarines of Russia, which are reported to be still under their sea trials. Both Dmitry Donskoy and Belgorod-class need to be well tested and undergo endless sea trials before they are actually out for operations. Before diving deeper to know everything about the deadliest Russian submarines which are floating in the White Sea, make sure you subscribe to our channel to know more about incredible submarines and defense equipment that will transform the military force into a tech-enabled version. What is so unique about Belgorod and Dmitry Donskoy submarines? Belgorod is a modified design of the original Oscar II class, which was previously also a Russian nuclear submarine. One of the longest submarines in the last 30 years, Belgorod will be measuring somewhere around 184 meters long and about 15 meters across. It will be capable of much more displacement than its base model. Oscar II class submarine hull was capable of 19,000 tons of displacement, but now the enlarged version of it will have more capability. This longest Belgorod will be super capable of carrying 6 underwater drones, nuclear-armed, nuclear-powered, and many such types of equipment. By every means, it's the longest submarine in the world. This time, Russia has even surpassed the US Navy's Ohio-class submarines. Apart from these, the interesting fact about Belgorod is that her role will be split. This means she will be acting 2 roles at a time, first as a mother submarine to the Losh-Harik deep-diving midget submarines, and secondly as a weapon holder platform. This is something extraordinary, isn't it? The exciting part here is that Belgorod is expected to be on a special mission. NATO is concerned if they will be inserting internet cables underwater, which will directly connect to the Western countries. The second role of this new impressive submarine is also interesting. It's all around nuclear strike and deterrence. For this interesting work, the submarine will be equipped with 6 2M39 Poseidon torpedoes. Now let's take a look at what these Typhoon-class submarines look like. Special submarines built for the Cold War have a displacement of 48,000 tons, which makes them the largest submarine fleet owned by the Soviet Navy. The leading boat in the fleet was the Project 941 Akula, and others were accompanying it in the fleet. In total, 7 deadliest submarines were planned to be designed, but only 6 of them completed their construction. The rough length of these Typhoon-class submarines is 175 meters, with a beam of 23 meters and a 12-meter draft. This largest fleet can accommodate up to 160 crew members, and the most appealing aspect of this largest fleet was it was developed with multiple pressure hulls. Almost 7 hulls were fitted in the submarine, 2 parallel to the main hull and 5 inner hulls situated inside a superstructure. All of this makes it a wider submarine than the other fleet of submarines. Each of those 6 submarines from the Typhoon-class fleet has 19 compartments and a strengthened module situated above the main hulls and behind the missile launch tubes, which was widely termed as a control room for the electronic equipment. From the sources, it was revealed that the only Typhoon-class submarine is now armed with a more advanced and contemporary RSM-56 Bulavak missile, which is the upgraded version of the R-39M project. This incredible modernization came up with a commendable range of 5,000 miles and is capable of raining down 6 or more multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. But to equip those Dmitry Donskoy, her missile tubes needed to be modernized and also need good funding. So it is not clear if all the tubes were modernized or not. The possibility is that the Defense Ministry might have upgraded 1 or 2 of them, but not all of them. Whatever the scenario, it's clear that Dmitry Donskoy is still active and serving the Soviet Union. It is still a crucial part of the Russian naval force, and if some renovations are made to the boat, it will end up as one of the deadliest submarines to exist in the defense world. So from all this information, it's pretty clear that both Dmitry Donskoy and Belgorod-class submarines will be super powerful and stealthy when active, and also can destroy the entire town by just being active for 30 minutes. Which are the deadliest submarines owned by the Russians? Next lethal submarine is also owned by the Russian naval force, the Bore-class submarines. These Bore-class submarines are quite smaller than the well-known destructive Typhoon-class submarines. This submarine and its extraordinary features cleared out that the size does not matter, but the advancements and featurization do. Of the total of 4 of them serving the Russian Navy, 2 of them were assigned to the Northern Fleet, and the other 2 were placed in the Pacific Fleet. Some features like new sonar systems and pump jet propulsion systems will help underwater submarines to be silently operated when underwater, brilliantly better than its predecessors when electronics and control systems were talked about. When the combat aspects come into the picture, this highly buzzed Bore-class submarine will have 6 torpedo tubes and 16 silos, which will be capable of launching the newly created RSM-56 Bulava SLBM. This new combat equipment has an insane range of over 5,000 miles. Each Bulava is capable of carrying a maximum of 10 MIVRS that have payloads ranging from 100 to 150 kilotons. So what are your thoughts on these 2 deadliest and the biggest submarines owned by Russians? What could be the exact reason behind the floating of these submarines in the White Sea? Do let us know your views in the comments below. And before we wrap up, if you're interested in other fascinating things about combat submarines, then make sure to check out our video on the most advanced ballistic missile submarine, which is a major threat to China and other nations. You can go check this out after the video. That said, we've come to the end of this video. If you enjoyed watching it, then make sure to like, share and subscribe to our channel for more such exciting content. See you in the next video.